Hello there, guys, and welcome to our first class for the first unit. This is a class that is part of Behavior School, and our subject is biology. Our grade and section is 9th high school, and we are working on week number 1 today. I'm sorry, so let's start. And here you have our topic as well as our ending mark. Today we're going to study topic 1.01, Exploring Life. And here you have the ending mind. Explains what can be considered science and how science is practiced by identifying what types of questions can be answered by science so that he or she can complete the module assessment correctly. All right, so it will be about it for our topic and ending mind, and here you have a summary of the activities that you need to complete. So number 1, access the online platform, or most likely access the Agilex platform. After you have accessed it, then you need to go to topic 1.01 and complete the worksheet. Of course, read the topic and then complete the worksheet that you find in the last page. Then upload your worksheet to Agilex and participate in the live discussion about biology. That's something very important to consider. I will also ask you to make a small summary in your notebook about the most relevant concepts that you can see in the topic. And in order to do that, you need to follow this notebooks format. Include the date, include the ending mind, include the title, and of course, the general text that you're writing about, okay? Then let's continue. All right, so you know that our subject is biology, but what's biology exactly? So basically, it is the study of living things. And it can be summarized in this statement. But notice that when we talk about living things, there are like huge, gigantic fields that we can study that are always related to biology. Let me give you some explanation about what fields are related to biology. So the first one is zoology. So zoology is basically going to study animals. And it's going to study absolutely everything related to animals. It comes to behavior, it comes to their eating habits, their reproduction systems, and the mobility about several species from one ecosystem to another, the fights that they might have over food, etc., etc. And of course, one more time, zoology is still related to biology. We can also talk about botany. So botany is basically going to study everything that's related to plants. So it's going to study their structure, it's going to study the composition of their cells, their behavior, the way they're going to mobilize in several environments, their adaptation to certain conditions, and so on and so forth. There are much more things that can be studied when it comes to botany. We can also talk about ecology. And in ecology, we're going to study basically animals and their interaction with their environment. So, for example, we have a very beautiful animal right here in the picture. So, ecology is going to study the way it is going to interact inside his habitat, what kind of food it is going to consume, the way he is going to be let's say, protecting their species in order not to get extinct, the reproduction cycle as well, and much more things. We have another example here, microbiology. That's something extremely interesting as well. So microbiology is going to study the composition from the cells or from very microscopic organisms. And it's quite helpful. It's a specific field from biology because it helps us to develop medicine. It also helps us to study why a virus such as the coronavirus has spread so quickly around the world. It also helps us to identify certain proteins that can be reproduced through the implantation of certain codifications or RNA particles into other cells and much more. Right now, we're just taking a look at very general concepts of each one of them, but during the year, we're going to be expanding a little bit more in each one of them. We also have biochemistry. So biochemistry basically studies the reactions or the chemical reactions that we can usually see in living things. For example, the way that cells are going to absorb nutrients and they are going to change those nutrients and particles into energy for the organism, the way plants, for example, are going to absorb certain inorganic materials, and then they are going to turn them into organic composition materials that are going to support the energy production of plants in general. That's part of the biochemistry. Also, we have the anatomy and physiology. So both of these fields are related to the human body, and they basically study the structure in which the systems inside our body are going to be arranged in order to function appropriately. And especially these fields are quite important when it comes to the study of medicine, because based on the understanding of the structure and their systems, we can predict a normal and abnormal behavior, as well as how to treat them correctly in order to support the health of humans in general. All right, so those are some of the fields that you can actually still study when it comes to biology, and they are still related to that subject. But it's very important to consider that whenever we're studying any of the subjects, there is something crucial that we always use when it comes to science, because biology is a part of science as well. So we use the scientific method to test our theories. That's extremely important. If you have a theory, but if you don't test it out and you don't make it go through all of the steps of the scientific method, then the theory is not true. That theory is not proven already. And I'm pretty sure that you remember the steps from the scientific method. We have observation. Also, we are going to state a question. We're going to do some research, state a hypothesis, experimentation. We're going to collect some data. We're going to analyze our results, and then we're going to set some conclusions. All right, let's continue. And something to take into consideration as well is that those fields that rely on opinions that cannot be tested are not considered science. Some examples of these fields are philosophy and art. So philosophy and art are very abstract, let's say. So let me give you an example with Aristotle. So Aristotle used to think that there was this type of other dimension, which is like the imaginary dimension, in which there are physical things that also have a spiritual part living in that specific section. So at some point, you might be thinking that it sounds a little bit like a religious kind of thing, making a relationship between heaven and these conceptions that Aristotle had. So, of course, these are just guesses. They are just theories that cannot be actually tested. And actually, many people have actually believed that they are true throughout history without having an actually proof that it's true. So, basically, that's why they cannot be considered real science, because we cannot test out this imaginary world through the scientific method and prove them true. In these fields, we can also consider some that are called pseudoscience, such as astrology. So astrology believes that we can predict the future of a person just based on the position of stars and the position of the constellations in general. And one more time, that's not something that can be scientifically proven, but something that a lot of people believe in. So one more time, it's not specifically science, but a lot of people believe in it. And it's called pseudoscience. And now that we're talking about it, we also need to consider the word reliability. So how can we actually be certain that something is true? So usually when it comes to reliability of knowledge, we are going to take into consideration the aspects that you can see in this slide. So to prove them true, we need to know that this theory or law has been tested already, and it has gone through all of the steps of the scientific method. And it does not mix opinions and facts. And something important is that an opinion is just a belief or a guess from a person, but a fact is something that you can actually observe and something that is true in the natural world. So we need to avoid mixing any of them. We need to avoid mixing what we think with what is actually observed. It is also it is not connected to products that will be sold, because usually what happens is that when it comes to, let's say, the creation of a new product, and the owners of this industry are actually willing to promote that consumers are going to buy their product. Sometimes, it can be, let's say, twisted in a way that it is going to make the results in their favor in order to start selling their product. So it's better if the products are, developed afterwards, but the scientific investigation is independent from the product. And later on, of course, then after having solid evidence in facts, not opinions, then people are going to be able to develop a product from that investigation, but not before. And it has been revised by other organizations and got the same results. This is something very important, because probably the conditions that we have our laboratory when we were testing our hypothesis were different than the situations that can be done in Australia, in Russia, in England. So basically, what people pretend by retesting and redoing all of the scientific method with the same theory, let's say, or with the same law, is that what has been proven is not because people are manipulating things in a certain way, but actually they are actually true, because they are facts. They are not things that we are manipulating, but they are part of a real theory. And lastly, the results have been published in a scientific journal. That's another extremely important thing, because on internet you're going to find many information, but take into consideration that not everything you find in there is going to be true. And it's better if you rely on scientific journals or scientific web pages in order to be certain that what you are studying right there, it's actually true. And I guess that's pretty much about it with the presentation. So make sure to go back to the summary of activities that you had before in order to be sure that everything has been completed for today. And I will get to see you in a couple of minutes. So goodbye, guys, and meet you around.